there should be a statue of Adolf Hitler in every town in California, because he was the first one I can find any historical record of who wouldn't let people in his house if they lit a cigarette. So he's the founder of modern California culture. And he also was against animal research.
Yeah, and he was a vegetarian.
He was a vegetarian. Oh, he's so many new. He was an astrology buff. There are so many New Age ideas go back to Adolf, but he abolished animal research. He substituted social undesirables.
Keep watching to learn more. For early access to our videos and live stream events, sign up for our free weekly newsletter at newthinkingaloud.org. New Thinking Aloud is presented by the California Institute for Human Science, a fully accredited university offering distant learning graduate degrees that focus on mind, body, and spirit. The topics that we cover here. We are particularly excited to announce new degrees emphasizing parapsychology and the paranormal. Visit their website at cihs.edu.
Book 4 in the New Thinking Aloud dialogue series is Charles T. Tart, 70 Years of Exploring Consciousness and Parapsychology, now available on Amazon.
Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Hello and welcome again. This is Jeffrey Mishlove, back with Robert Anton Wilson, exploring the amusement park of the mind. So, Bob, one of the other religious traditions that you've explored is the cult of Koreshanity, which I understand is still in existence to some degree in the state of Florida.
Yes, Koreshanity was invented by a fellow named Cyrus Tweed, who invented what he called an electroalchemical laboratory, and I haven't been able to find a clear description of what he did there. But in 1880-something, he managed to invoke the great goddess of the ancient... he was the first one in modern times to invoke the great goddess. Now more and more people are doing it. It's almost getting commonplace. But he was the first in modern times. And she told him he would found the next great world religion, which would be based on return to the goddess. And the religion would convert everybody because it would give the first scientifically accurate description of the earth and its location. And the revelation was that we're living on the inside of the earth. The earth is hollow and we're on the inside. The moon, the sun, the stars, and all that are in the middle, and we're on the inside of the shell. And outside that is nothing but solid rock to infinity.
We're on the inside looking in.
We're on the inside looking
in. Which is pretty much what you were saying in the beginning of our program in any case, about the inside and the outside.
Yes, as a matter of fact. The curious thing is that he got lots of followers at one point. They had a whole town in Florida. Now there are very few left, but it was a fast-growing religion around the turn of the century. And they invented an instrument called the rectilineator, and they went up and down the Florida coast taking measurements, and their measurements proved the earth was curved that way, as if we were on the inside of it, the concave way. And at exactly that time, the Zetetic Society in England, which were the people who believed the earth was flat, they were taking experiments at the longest canal in England. They were taking measurements according to them, and according to the Orthodox too, the curvature of the earth should be measurable at that canal, because the canal is long enough that if you take a picture of something at the other end of the canal, it should be lower, because if the earth is convex. No, I should have said convex before. Now now concave. And anyway, they took measurements, and the earth seemed to be flat. And this led to a great deal of dispute, and finally there was a bet made about it, and Alfred Wallace, the chap who invented the theory of natural selection at the same time as Darwin.
A great spiritualist.
Yes, curiously enough. He was appointed the judge. And so the Zeteticists took their measurements, and the Orthodox Spherians took their measurements, and for the Zetetics it came out flat again, and for the Spherians it came out curved, like a sphere.
It's the way most science seems to work.
Well, it certainly is curious that you got it in the same years, 1900 to 1910, you got these three sets of measurements, flat, curved this way, and curved this way. It seems instruments do tend to read what the people who are operating them want them to read if the people have enough faith and hope. This bet led to legal suits because Wallace ruled that the spherical ones were more accurate, and the others sued Wallace for being prejudiced and not giving an accurate verdict. And the thing went through the courts in England for quite a while. So I guess at this point, the shape of the Earth is still rather unsure until we get better instruments.
So the religion of Koreshanity was promulgated upon the scientific discovery that the Earth is shaped this way.
Yeah, that we're on the inside of it. Yeah, and it was also based on the idea that racism had to be abolished by whites and blacks intermarrying, and then we could build a solid front against the Orientals, about whom Tweed was quite paranoid. He didn't think that hating Orientals was racism. He thought that was just common sense. Like everybody else, he had his own idea of what was common sense and what was fanaticism.
Wasn't he also a cousin of the founder of the Mormon Church?
As a matter of fact, he was, I don't know if he was a cousin, he was related to Joseph Smith, yes. I wonder if Joseph Smith had an alchemical, electrical laboratory, too, to get where he got his visions. I'd like to know what was going on with some of these 19th century people. The fellow who wrote received Owaspy, which is
huge Bible, biblical type tome.
It's the only one that begins by saying this is the latest revelation, but not the final revelation. All the others claim to be the final revelation. We know how he got that. He was a dentist, and he got all those voices while he was sniffing nitrous oxide. I wonder about Moses and the burning bush.
And if he wasn't also sniffing something.
Well, there was a burning bush. Now, I know one burning bush that's likely to induce the kind of experiences Moses reported. So, I think this is an area of the history of religion that's worthy of more investigation, such as Terence McKenna gives it in The Food of the Gods, or Gordon Wasson in The Road to Eleusis, and John Allegro in The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. These are all people who argue that religion was, from the very beginning, based on drug trips.
Well, the ancient Vedic scriptures of India seem to be quite specific about the preparation of a mysterious compound called soma.
Yeah, which sounds a lot like one of those mushrooms that are involved in a lot of other religions. It's, I lived in Ireland, as I think I mentioned. It's very strange to come back to this country and see these ads on television, the Committee for a Brain-Free America, or whatever they're. The ones, this is your brain, and they have an egg, and then they put it in a frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. And then they put bacon next to it. This is your brain on drugs with 2 slices of bacon. This is your brain on drugs with 2 slices of bacon and an English muffin, or whatever. You know the routine. It's really strange because they're trying to persuade us that drugs are bad for us, but at the same time, not only are all religions seemingly based on drugs originally, but we got 8 people currently with cases under appeal who've been sentenced to jail for not using drugs.
Really?
Yeah. In different states, we got 8 Christian scientists on trial for not using drugs. And they're appealing the cases. One of these cases, or 2 of them, will eventually arrive at the Supreme Court, and we'll get a ruling whether you got a right to refuse drugs. I think the way the government is going these days, the ruling will be you got a right to refuse drugs that the government doesn't like, but you don't have a right to refuse drugs the government does like, and you have a right to use drugs the government likes, but you don't have a right to use drugs the government doesn't like. Mm-hmm. Like they took that right away from the Indians recently in the Peyote decision. Mm-hmm. So it'll come down to everything not compulsory is forbidden, and everything not forbidden is compulsory. And I think that's what most Americans want. No choice is, I think, the platform of 20th century America. Anti-choice. Nobody should have a choice about anything.
Well, it seems to be just the opposite of the anarchy platform.
Yes, it is. In fact, I live in a little rustic retreat known as Santa Cruz, where they recently passed a law that you can't discriminate in hiring on the basis of personal appearance or sexual orientation. Now, how the hell can they tell whether when you have two candidates and you hire one of them? How do they know why you rejected the other one? Mm-hmm. It seems the idea is they want, even if they can't enforce it, they want people to feel that they have no choice about anything anymore. Everything is controlled by the government. Because two people come in, and if I had a business, which if I had a business, I wouldn't have it in Santa Cruz, believe me. But if I had a business and I had an opening, two people come in, I would hire the uglier looking one on the grounds that the good looking one would have less chance of suing me for discrimination. And then I try to figure out which one looked like they had the weirdest sexual habits as far as I could guess that and pick that one.
Make sure you don't discriminate against them.
Yeah, so they'd have less chance of suing me. Well, the ideal, the ideal employee would be a hunchback child molester, I think, or maybe somebody with that elephant man condition who's also a also a sweetophiliac,
a sweetophiliac?
Yeah, that's somebody who likes to make it with pigs, hogs, and other distinguished kinds of swine. Not politicians, I mean the four-legged kinds of swine. No choice. We got all these people out, campaigning against a woman's right to choose whether she's going to have a child or not. And the government tells us you must take these drugs, you must not take those. And, then we got all these people who are against animal experiments. I could see where this is headed, looking at the history of the New Age as it's developed so far. I've been proposing for a long time there should be a statue of Adolf Hitler in every town in California, because he was the first one I can find any historical record of who wouldn't let people in his house if they lit a cigarette. Mm-hmm. So he's the founder of modern California culture. And he also was against animal research.
Yeah, and he was a vegetarian.
He was a vegetarian. So many new, he was an astrology buff. Mm-hmm. There are so many New Age ideas go back to Adolf. But he abolished animal research. He substituted social undesirables. Now, his idea of social undesirables might not be acceptable in America today. His list of social undesirables started with homosexuals, which nobody would go for using them, and Jews and communists and labor union leaders. But we got our own list of social undesirables. I think we replaced the rodents with cigarette smokers in the laboratories. And everybody would be happy. Nobody would be out crusading for the rights of cigarette smokers.
They're going to die sooner anyway, of lung cancer, so what's the difference?
Exactly, you see?
Yeah.
And then after the cigarette smokers, we get the people who don't vote Republican. Mm-hmm. They're getting to be a tinier and tinier minority, and they...
Yeah. What do you think of gun control?
I haven't... The only thing that I've noticed is that in a lot of states now, I don't know if it's nationwide, but in a lot of states they've banned the sale of toy guns. I think that's a really interesting development.
That'll address the problem.
You can't get toy guns, but you can get the real ones, and mm-hmm. That's obviously they're not serious about this problem.
You open your new book, which is called Reality is What You Can Get Away With, which is actually a screenplay. It's sort of a surreal screenplay with a flash of the various bumper stickers having to do with gun control.
Yes, if nukes are outlawed, only outlaws will have nukes. We got to look out for that in the future. There's a growing movement toward outlawing nukes, and that obviously means only the outlaws will have nukes. Do we really want that situation? And then suppose, marriage is getting less and less popular. By the current American view that anything we don't like, we should pass a law against. Most Americans don't get married, right, anymore? And so the next thing, they'll pass a law against it. So that's another bumper sticker I suggested in that excellent book you just mentioned, Reality is What You Can Get Away With. If marriage is outlawed, only outlaws will have in-laws. So that's a thought to think about.
And if guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
And if laws are outlawed, only outlaws will have laws.
The anarchist position.
Yes.
Let's return to the subject of conspiracies.
Oh, good.
Once again.
Yes, I like conspiracies because no matter how outrageous I am on that subject, there'll always be 10 people who believe it. That always cheers me up. Mm-hmm. The thought of those 10 people who believe anything they hear as long as it's on video.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're mostly known as being the person who has popularized in modern times the significance of the Bavarian Illuminati.
Oh, no, Nesta Webster should get credit for that.
Mm-hmm. The one who wrote your book on secret societies?
Yeah, and World Revolution, The Plot Against Civilization. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was a great inspiration to me. I thought, gee, if this nut can write a book that stays in print for 70 years, maybe if I borrowed some of the ideas, my books might last too. Mm-hmm. And the real reason I revived the Illuminati was this. I started writing about that back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. It was because there were so many totally lunatic conspiracy theories around. And I thought it would be fun to concoct the most lunatic combination conspiracy theory of all. Mm-hmm. And that's when I began to discover the truth of what Paul Krasner has so many times said. You can't tell the reality from the satire anymore because the reality is more bizarre than the satire. And I found a lot of people took my totally lunatic conspiracy theory and believed it. Mm-hmm. And I started looking at it and I thought, in some ways, it makes more sense than my usual assumption that the people who run this country are total idiots. If they were total idiots, how would they get to the office in the morning? Well, we know they have chauffeurs, but still, Bob Dobbs really shook me up when he said the two most common fallacies are that our rulers are dumb and that they mean well. They're not dumb and they don't mean well. And when I started thinking about that, I decided, well, maybe the Illuminati conspiracy makes more sense than my usual assumption that we're governed by C students. Mm-hmm. Or F students, rather.
Well, what is, for the benefit of our viewers who aren't familiar with the history of the Illuminati, how does that go?
Well, that's the beauty of the Illuminati conspiracy, is that almost every writer on the Illuminati has a different slant on it. The Illuminati really existed at one point. It was a secret society within Masonry, which is itself a secret society, which is cute. A secret society within a secret society. That's absolutely guaranteed to produce paranoia among people who try to figure out what's going on in there. The final secret of the Illuminati is you don't know the secret of the Illuminati until you're in too deep to ever get out again. And, Nesta Webster's theory was that the Illuminati were atheists and planning to overthrow the English Empire, which had brought civilization to the whole world as she saw it, and replace it with a German Empire. That didn't wash much after World War II, so a lot of her disciples have revised that the Illuminati were atheists who were plotting communism all along. Now that communism has fallen apart, the Illuminati are chiefly blamed for rock music. Then there are those who think the Illuminati are actually Satanists, and they're behind the Son of Sam, Charlie Manson, Dan Quayle, everything else that's absolutely bizarre and incomprehensible. Satanic child molestation, of which the country has had an epidemic in the last 10 years, almost all of it imaginary. But imaginary epidemics are just as dangerous as real ones. The last time they had an epidemic of that sort in Salem, there were 23 people hanging from Gallows Hill by the time it was over. So you should never regard something as trivial just because it's imaginary.
But how do you tell the difference these days between epidemics that are real and those which are imaginary?
It's getting harder and harder. I do a lot of writing for a magazine called The Realist, which is put out by Paul Krasner. And since the mid-'60s, Paul has been running a certain number of put-on articles in the middle of the genuine exposés. And his rationale is keeps his readers on their toes, teaches them not to believe any one source, not even his magazine. Check everything you read. Don't believe any of it at face value. And also it illustrates the point that it is getting harder and harder to tell reality from satire. When you got somebody like George Bush in the White House, it's very difficult to tell what's satire and what's reality. And I've written some articles for The Realist. I've written some genuine journalism, and I've written some put-ons. And it's amazing that some people think the journalism is put-ons, and they think the put-ons are journalism. And that's the kind of world we're living in.
The question is, can you remember which is which?
Unless I've been brainwashed. I have a friend, I don't think I'll mention his name. I have a friend who served in the Marine Corps with Lee Harvey Oswald. And he got accused by Jim Garrison of being involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Your friend?
Yeah. He was never brought to trial because Garrison didn't have enough evidence. But he worried about it a lot, and he entered an altered state of consciousness to talk without value judgments, impartially, with scientific objectivity. And he decided he was involved in the Kennedy assassination, but the CIA brainwashed him while he was in the Marines. They brainwashed both him and Oswald. Then they brainwashed him again so he couldn't remember how they'd been manipulating him all these years. Then he decided I was his CIA babysitter. And when I tried to explain to him why I didn't believe this, he said they brainwashed me too, so I couldn't remember what I had been doing. And I said, but my wife doesn't remember me making all these trips I would have had him make. He said, well, they brainwashed her too. At that point, it becomes an infinite regress. You can't trust anybody's testimony. How do we know the CIA hasn't been brainwashed?
The CIA is really a tool of the Illuminati.
Well, I was on a panel with Bill Cooper in Atlanta, Georgia, a few months ago. Bill Cooper puts out videos about the alien CIA conspiracy.
Oh, yes.
According to Bill, he's a former naval intelligence agent, and he saw secret government documents which show the CIA and the extraterrestrials have been conspiring together since 1948.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And the aliens have double-crossed the CIA. They were supposed to do only certain things, and they've been sneaking around, mutilating cattle and raping Whitley Strieber every chance they get. And the CIA can't stop them because they're too entrenched here, so the CIA is just trying to cover up the fact that they were involved in this alien conspiracy from the beginning. He also has a film showing that the CIA, the Secret Service driver in the car in Dealey Plaza turned around and shot Kennedy. And that's really fascinating. He shows it 5 times. And each time he tells you, if you look, you can see it. And of course, by the 5th time, you can see it if you got an active imagination. But I could also see the guy in the grassy knoll in the photographs that Garrison had. And I wrote an introduction once for a book by a fellow who believed he saw Masonic symbols on the moon. And by the time I was through looking at all of his photographs, I could see the Masonic symbols too. I've got a very active imagination. The difference between me and Bill Cooper and the guy with the Masonic symbols on the moon is I have just as much imagination as they have, but I don't trust myself as much as they trust themselves. I think my imagination is that of a writer of fantasy, and I wouldn't ask anybody to trust my imagination.
Well, when I look at your imagination, I get the sense that there's a committee going on here. There's a true believer, there's a skeptic, there's a humorist, there's a physicist, there's a psychologist, and they're all battling it out with each other.
Multiple personality disorder. I'm glad to have another analysis.
Obviously, it was satanic child abuse that got
obviously, either that or it was the aliens, depending on which. It was either the aliens or somebody. What I want to know is what's so attractive about Whitley Strieber? Why do they come back and molest him so often?
The author of Communion.
Yes.
We should mention for our viewers, and other books about both horror novels and true life horror stories of his contact with aliens.
Yes, and Communion was made into, I thought, an excellent movie, which...
I like the motion picture, too.
Yeah, it flopped at the box office. I'm not quite sure
Starring
why.
Christopher Walken.
That's right, yes. I've seen Whitley on TV several times. I have the distinct feeling that he is telling what he remembers.
Well, he seems to be sincere. In fact, there's an enormous movement now going on. I heard recently that someone claimed that as high as 2% of the population has been abducted by aliens.
Yes, I don't believe they've been abducted by aliens, but I'm quite willing to believe 2% of the population has had experiences of the sort that lead them to think that's the most plausible explanation.
That reminds me a little bit of the Ionesco play, Rhinoceros.
Eventually everybody will be abducted by aliens.
This is the play in which everybody gradually becomes a rhinoceros. First it's only a few people. Pretty soon they take over.
Yes, well, these things, the way the witch mania spread through Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries, and the large part of that was incubi and succubi, which are creatures that sexually molest people in the night. And so a lot of these extraterrestrial molesters are just incubi and succubi in the science fiction costume, but it's basically the same myth. Of course, people tend to have erotic dreams anyway. But I think a lot of this goes back to traumatic childhood experiences, which tend to create certain disorders of perception.
And an active imagination.
Yes.
Let me switch gears with you a little bit. I'd like to talk about your interest in occultism. You've been a student, quite a student, I think, of the writings and teachings of Aleister Crowley, who was a writer about occult magical rituals. And I believe you've participated in a variety of magical rituals. What's that about?
Well, the background is I believe that what we perceive is based on the culture of our parents and our teachers and the people around us and on the language we speak. And I'm interested in ways of changing perception, like studying deeply an alien culture. I mean, alien on this planet. Like spending 6 years in Ireland and trying to get into the Irish reality tunnel and out of the American reality tunnel. And I have a lot of exercises I've tried for changing my ways of perceiving the world and myself. And I did actually, I have done, some of them have been quite successful. I turned myself from a pessimist into an optimist. And I liked that so much I've never gone back to pessimism. And I don't know why so many people spend so much time in a pessimistic reality tunnel. It's a miserable place to live. But some people feel if they leave it, they feel guilty. If you're not in a pessimistic tunnel, you're not responsible. But once I got out of it, I never wanted to go back into it again.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, that's the background is experiments on altering consciousness and perceived reality tunnels. And then I got interested in occultism, which to me consists of a whole bunch of gimmicks to alter your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The other effects are spotty, unpredictable, and still controversial.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt occult exercises of the Crowley tradition and several other traditions will alter your perceptions.
When you're not advocating the use of magic to control the environment, or
No, I'm not advocating.
you're not
it.
not advocating it either, right?
It's interesting to see what happens. It's well, to be, Israel Regardie said there are two ways of looking at that aspect of magic. In altering your conscious by magic, you invoke various entities. Now, you can regard them as subjective, as parts of yourself that you're separating out from your normal ego so that you can find out how they've been controlling you without your awareness and deal with them on a more rational level. This is sort of like Jungian therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can regard them as separate entities that have their own existence apart from your mind. That's the objective theory. And Regardie said it's best if you don't believe either the subjective or the objective theory, but just consider them both as hypotheses and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that every time I become pretty much convinced the subjective theory explains everything, something happens that makes me start thinking again, maybe the objective theory is more reasonable after all. Every time I start leaning too much toward the objective theory, things start happening that convince me the subjective theory makes more sense. So we come back again to whether I want to believe it's my right and left hemispheres of my brain or it's a 6-foot-tall white rabbit from County Kerry. And that depends on which reality tunnel you prefer at a given moment. But in altering perception by occult techniques, you certainly find yourself in a much more interesting world than most people are living in, and it gives you a different perspective when you come. I wouldn't want to live there permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the optimist tunnel, which I try to remain in because it's a happy place, the occult tunnel I like to come out of and just check to see if I'm still in touch with consensus reality or if I lost that entirely. I don't want to lose touch with consensus reality entirely because then I'd have trouble at the bank every time I went in to cash a check, you know.
Mm-hmm. Your use of the term reality tunnels comes from your book Quantum Psychology, I think, doesn't it?
No, it comes from Timothy Leary.
Mm.
There's a lot of terms for this concept in sociology, grid or gloss in ethnomethodology,
Mm-hmm.
or your system of abstractions was what Whitehead called it in his philosophy.
The deconstructionists are commonly calling it now your story.
Your story.
Or your meta-story.
Or your scenario,
Yeah.
or your game, your favorite game, or your life script.
Mm-hmm.
And, what I've been into all along in my writing has been tearing these things apart so you can create alternative scenarios, alternative games.
Mm-hmm. Well, your fascination with quantum physics, and particularly the many worlds model, suggests the possibility that all of these different, I'll call them reality tunnels, can coexist simultaneously, even if they contradict each other.
Yes, the funny thing about the multi-worlds model, which was invented by Everett Wheeler and Graham at Princeton in 1952,
Mm-hmm.
when I first wrote a novel about that, the Schrodinger's Cat trilogy, I didn't take that seriously at all. I saw it as a useful metaphor. And then after that trilogy came out, every place I went on the lecture circuit, I met young physicists who were wildly enthusiastic because they thought that was the most plausible model of all. There are approximately 8 alternative models in quantum mechanics. You can count differently and make it come out 7 or 9 if you want. It depends on how subtle you want to be. But there are approximately 8. And the multiple worlds model seems the craziest, wildest. It seems to have escaped from science fiction. And how did it ever get into respectable science?
Yeah.
And yet I find more and more young physicists think it makes more sense than any of the alternatives, because the alternatives put you in places like Buddha. You get very close to Buddhism or magic or shamanism or solipsism. Merman of Columbia, who's the one who's most aware that physics seems to be drifting in a shamanic direction and is most hostile to that, he has explicitly accepted solipsism as a more reasonable alternative.
Solipsism being the idea that it's all in your mind.
Merman has written a paper, Is the Moon There When Nobody Looks? And he comes to the conclusion the moon is not there when nobody's looking. I myself, I try alternative reality tunnels. I can't quite get into that one. Maybe because I've been hit by things so often that I wasn't aware of until they hit me. I don't have very good night vision. And I've banged into chairs that I didn't know were there so often that I don't think I have to think about the chair for the chair to be there.
Maybe you just have to bang into it and it appears. Well, the interesting thing about the many worlds theory is, you know, to common sense, it would seem to have a lot of baggage, like there have to be these billions and billions of other worlds, and yet, in another sense, it's the most parsimonious. It sticks most closely to the actual equations.
It accepts the Schrodinger wave equations at face value, whereas every other model has to create philosophical assumptions to get away from what the equations are saying. The Copenhagen interpretation says the equations are just human inventions that we created to explain our experiences in the laboratory. But then you're left with the haunting question, why do they explain our experiences in the laboratory if they're not describing something that exists apart from us? Or in relation to us, I should say. And if they are describing something that exists in relation to us, then they're describing something that's multi-valued, and you've opened the door to the multi-world.
And maybe for those of our viewers who are not familiar with the multi-world theory, you might just sort of summarize it.
Well, every time the universe can take two paths, it does take both paths.
Which can occur millions of times every second.
Yeah, well, the classic case is the Schrödinger's cat Gedanken experiment, which Schrödinger brought up just to show there was a problem. He didn't think anybody would ever take it literally. But it does show there is a problem. If you use the orthodox mathematics of quantum mechanics, you can prove that if you put a poison gas pellet in a box and a radioactive element and a cat, at a certain point in the radioactive decay, the pellet will explode and kill the cat. But at any given moment, if you solve the equations, you find that it has happened and it hasn't happened yet. You get two possible answers. So the radioactive decay has and has not reached the point that will explode the pellet, so the pellet has and has not exploded, and therefore the cat is dead and alive at the same time. And this only collapses mathematically when you open the door and look, and then the whole system collapses into either a dead cat or a live cat. Now, Schrödinger thought that showed there was something seriously wrong with our understanding of quantum mechanics. But the multiple world interpretation is it just shows that the world is weirder than we ever suspected. There is a universe where the cat is dead and a universe where the cat is alive. So there's a universe where John F. Kennedy was persuaded by Marilyn Monroe to throw over the presidency and all that jazz and run off to Mexico with her and divorce Jackie and marry her. And I hope they had a happy life. Then there's the universe where he went to Dallas and got shot by Howard Hunt or Lee Harvey Oswald or whoever. Or the Secret Service in Cooper's pictures. And then there's the universe where whoever the assassin or assassins were all missed, and Kennedy served out his term with or without Marilyn. And all of these universes are equally real. There's a universe in which I didn't get here tonight to do this show. I was in a car crash. And so you're sitting here talking to an empty chair. No, you wouldn't be talking to an empty chair. You'd be doing an interview with somebody else. Yeah.
Well, how does that affect you?
It's a comfort at times of distress. I think, well, this is happening in this universe, but there's another universe where it's not happening.
You get some consolation from it.
Yeah. I mean, you got to find your consolation where you can get it these days. There isn't much around.
Ever the optimist. If nothing else works, I'll resort to a parallel universe.
Exactly, yeah.
Get through this thing.
The fascinating thing about the multiple worlds model is that there's got to be a universe in which technology is far ahead of where it is now because of various historical changes. So there'd be a universe where an immortality pill would exist by now. And being the type I am, I would have taken the immortality pill. So I would not have any feeling that death was approaching. And what I want to know is, how do I get out of this universe into that universe?
Well, maybe it's sort of like waking up from a dream.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I mean, the suggestion that I hear is if we're living simultaneously in all of these universes, that some part of all of that is connected, that they're not totally askew from each other.
Yes, but then of course there is the Copenhagen view, which is that every model we make tells us how our mind works. As much as it tells us about the universe. These are just human symbolic games. The universe itself is bigger than any of our models. It would take one way of expressing the Copenhagen view, which I never thought of until the middle of this afternoon, is that it would take an infinite number of words to describe the universe. So, ergo, any model we make does not describe the universe. It describes what our brains are capable of saying at this time.
Reminds me of a strange experience I had last night after reading your book, in which, in fact, I told it to you. It triggered that thought.
Which book?
I had been reading all of your books yesterday, The Cosmic Trigger in particular, and Cosmic Trigger 2. Then in the middle of the night, I heard a word, infinite words, like a mechanical UFO voice.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way before. The closest I ever came to that thought before was in quantum psychology, where I said the only thing equal to the universe is the universe. And the only theory that would be adequate would be proven only by building another universe the same size and age as this one. And then that proves your theory is equal to the universe. Otherwise, any theory is only partially true.
So what we're going to do is keep going on with this interview for an indefinite period of time until you've described the universe completely.
Yeah, in an infinite number of words.
You can't get up until you've done it.
Well, you know, when you do a lot of promotion for a new book, it gets to feel that way. It gets to feel like you're talking to an infinite number of people, saying the same thing an infinite number of times, trying to find something new to say. And when you say something new, you have the sinking feeling that in the next interview you're going to repeat it because it sounded good the first time. And it does seem like an infinite series with no end. But then I find, then the promotion is over and I'm back at the word processor and creating an infinite series of words,
this is your
contributing
task.
to an infinite series of words that writers have been producing since the beginning of human script.
Yeah, through all eternity, you have to keep creating words.
I mentioned
in one universe or another.
I mentioned Guillaume Battista Vico a while ago.
Yes.
Yeah, if you really understand Vico, you can get this really weird feeling if you're a writer. Even if you write only letters to your friends. If you understand Vico fully, every sentence you write the whole human race up until now is collaborating with you. Because the words you're using are the products of everybody who has ever existed. They've all contributed something. The Greeks have contributed something to the English language. The Latins contributed a lot. A lot of Danish pirates have contributed, and eventually you track it back far enough, the whole human race, back to those people in Quest of Fire who grunted at each other and waved things around. They were all involved in any thought you can express.
The bodhisattva who goes moo. Well, it seems as if words are part of the infinite play of things, much in the way particles are.
Yes, but we know more about words than about particles. We're trapped in linguistic constructs. All that is metaphor. I believe somebody said that before me. Norman Mailer?
Korzybski?
No, Norman Brown. No. I think Korzybski said it in other words. So did Vico.
Well, you're quite a wordsmith yourself, and you use words, as you pointed out earlier, in order to break through the conventional way in which words constrain our minds.
Yes, there are people like Carlyle and William Burroughs who say we've got to get beyond words, but they go on writing anyway. I decided there's a basic fallacy there somewhere. I've decided we can't get beyond words. What we got to do is get more cynical about our words. So that way I go on writing without feeling like a hypocrite.
Cynicism as a way out. And of course, cynicism is an interesting word that has meant different things in different ages.
Yeah, it has something to do with dogs originally, etymologically, I think. Well, that's good because there's a lot of people who have as much imagination as me, but not as much skepticism, believe I'm channeling higher intelligence from the dog star.
One of your sub-personalities. Perhaps. Let me change the subject on you a bit. I have been given a request to ask you a little bit about Castle Perilous.
Chapel Perilous.
Chapel Perilous, yes. That's from the Grail myth, isn't it?
That's from the Grail legend, yes. Chapel Perilous is a stage in the magical quest in which your maps turn out to be totally inadequate for the territory, and you're completely lost. And at that point, you get an ally who helps you find your way back to something you can understand. And then after that, you've got for the rest of your life, you got this question, was that ally a supernatural helper, or was it just part of my own mind trying to save me from going totally bonkers with this stuff? And the people I know who've had that kind of experience, very few of them have ever come to an absolutely certain conclusion about that.
Well, there's always the question of the inside versus the outside that we began with earlier.
Yeah, well, I think they're inside and outside at the same time, which is, you don't need Russell's six-dimensional geometry or Mobius strip metaphors to get to that. If there are archetypal forms, they are inside me like they're inside everybody. But they're outside me because they're part of the DNA code, so they're in everybody else. Not only everybody alive, but everybody who ever has been alive, and they will remain there in the future. So they're outside me. They are controlling evolution. They are controlling human consciousness. They're controlling where we're going. And they have all the memories of where we came from. And so they're inside and outside at the same time. Now, it really gives me great delight to think of somebody from Psychop looking at this and trying to make sense out of that concept.
For our viewers who may not know, let us define Psychop. And I should mention as well, they're the subject of one of your books called The New Inquisitors.
The New Inquisition.
The New Inquisition,
I'm not the only one who's compared them to an Inquisition. Some sociologists said you smell the flames of the auto da fe every time you read them. You read their journal, Skeptical Inquirer. PsyCop is the Committee for Slander, Invective, and Calumny Against Open-Minded People. No, I'm sorry. What does it stand for again? The Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, which is, they really should be in politics because that's a really political type. They don't do scientific investigations. As a matter of fact, they did one, and the guy who did the research quit because he said they changed the statistics to fit their theories. His name is Dennis Rawlins. He's a PhD in astronomy at the Naval Observatory now. After that, they came out with a statement about why they weren't doing scientific investigations anymore.
That was the famous study on astrology.
Yeah, and now they don't do scientific investigations, so they can't be embarrassed any further like that. But they still keep it in their title, Committee for Scientific Investigation. Actually, they're a Committee for Slander and Invective, as I said. But how did we get on to such a dull... what's good, they serve a very useful function in my life. The Skeptical Inquirer, which is their journal, it's not quite on the level of Weekly World News, but the Realist. But they're trying. No, what I like about them is it's impossible to read more than a few pages without a deep conviction that despite all my suspicions, I am not the biggest idiot on this planet after all. Now that's a real service,
They make even you look good.
Yeah.
Well, they do some useful work. In fact, I know that you even agree with them on a couple of points we discussed. They were among the most active people attacking the imaginary satanic child abusers.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I agree with them about a lot of things, but I just can't resist teasing them because there's something hilarious to me about dogmatic rationalists. I believe that if you're rational, you gradually cure your dogmatism. And people who claim to be rational and are still dogmatic are very comical figures to me, like the Marxists and the objectivists. I think of them as atheistic religions. Toynbee was the first one to describe Marxism as an atheistic religion. And then Albert Ellis applied that label to objectivism. And I think PsyCop is in that same family. And it's interesting that we got an atheist religion in the Orient, Buddhism, but it's very tolerant and mellow. But it seems in the Occident, the atheistic religions are just as intolerant as the theistic religions. Isn't that peculiar? I mean, you can't tell that. As far as on the intolerance scale, Marxists, objectivists, PsyCop, and the hard-shell Baptists are all about at the same level. They're 100% on intolerance and 0% on tolerance. And that's something, I think it has to do with the structure of our language and the Aristotelian logic that we've all been trained in.
And of course, there's always paradoxes within every proposition, as you pointed out earlier. I mean, I know of interesting examples of liberalism within all of those traditions.
Yes, there are liberal materialists and fundamentalist materialists. There are liberal Copenhagenists and fundamentalist Copenhagenists, to get back to quantum theory. The liberal Copenhagenists say all of our models are models of the way the human mind works in trying to explain the universe, but let's see if we can make a better model, and they'll consider the parallel worlds model or Bell's theorem or the fundamentalist Copenhagenists say all of our models are just models of how the human mind tries to describe the universe, so let's not have any new models.
But, it's interesting because physicists like Saul Paul Sirag, who are interested in the physics of consciousness, say they take that Copenhagen argument and they say, yes, this exactly demonstrates that the theories of physics are really detailed descriptions of the way the mind functions.
Yes, that's, the way Saul Paul comes at that from a unique angle. What what he's trying to show is basically there's an isomorphism between the universe and certain forms of mathematics and the human mind and those forms of mathematics. And of course, in a sense, there has to be an isomorphism between group theory and the human mind, or the human mind wouldn't have created group theory. But why is there an isomorphism between that and the universe? Well, that's the oldest mystery in science. Einstein said the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it's comprehensible. Why do our mathematical systems fit the universe so often? That's without invoking God, it's very hard to understand, which is why so many mathematicians end up becoming mystics.
Well, what's the Discordian view of this?
Well, I'm not an orthodox Discordian. I tend to be a Discordian on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I think there's got to be an intelligence behind this isomorphism of the universe and mathematics. But I don't like the word God, because to most people, God means a nasty old man a few miles above the earth who's watching to see which kids are jacking off so he can barbecue them later on or charbroil them or something like that. This is such idiotic superstition that I don't want to get within 100 miles of it, so I won't use the word God. But I will admit that some implications of mathematics suggest some kind of intelligence somewhere outside the human mind. But I don't want to call it God, because if I say God, most people think that's a justification for the craziest superstitions the human race holds.
So, in other words, you believe in the God of the philosophers, not the God of the Bible.
Yeah, but I don't even like the God of the philosophers, because I think the word God should be left with the Bible thumpers. They invented it, let them keep it. I prefer something like the Tao, which is more mysterious, and people don't stop projecting their own paranoia and their own jealousy and rage and whatnot. I mean, the Bible God, I can't believe he created the universe. He couldn't even create a carbon molecule. He's so dumb. If he tried to create a carbon molecule, he'd get the atoms in the wrong place. Then he'd go into a snit and blow up 2 nearby cities just to show that he was pissed off again. I can't believe he is not a.
Well, maybe he's evolved since then. That was thousands of years ago.
Well, okay.
Give him some credit. He might have learned a few things.
There is a thought I hadn't considered. Maybe that's you can reconcile the Bible with what we now know and the thought that God isn't as childish as he used to be. But still, that means we got to give up this childish earlier version of God that the Bible gives us.
Well, I get the feeling that when you talk about the Tao, we're getting a little closer to the real Robert Anton Wilson. Underneath all the many masks.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite television show of all time was an episode of Kung Fu where Caine is helping this old man bring his wife back to the Indian lands to bury her. And there's a big fight between white racists and the Indians and a bunch of bandits who think they got a treasure in the box and don't know it's this guy's dead wife. And after all the plots and counterplots are all resolved, they finally get to the sacred ground to bury her, and they open the box, and out comes a statue. And anybody else would jump with shock at that point that this guy thinks has been married to a statue. And Caine, who's a Taoist, as you may remember, Kwai Chang Caine, the hero of that show, he just takes, okay, so this guy's been married to a statue. He doesn't react at all. So they bury her, and the guy says, "Could you say a prayer?" "I don't know much about prayers." And Caine looks down at the dirt where they've covered her, and he says, "Something unknown before the stars or the earth, before form or emptiness. I do not know its name, so I call it Tao." And that's the end of the show, and I think that's the greatest thing that ever appeared on American television. Yeah, that's my religion, if you can understand it.
Robert Anton Wilson. What a wonderful note to end on. ourselves.
Is that really the time? Hey, that was a real synchronicity. A great closing line. It wasn't mine. It comes from the Tao Te Ching.
There's the Tao at work, at work for us and with our viewers. Thanks so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for being with us.
For early access to our videos and live stream events, sign up for our free weekly newsletter at newthinkingaloud.org.
Book 4 in the New Thinking Aloud dialogue series is Charles T. Tart, 70 Years of Exploring Consciousness and Parapsychology, now available on Amazon.
New Thinking Aloud is presented by the California Institute for Human Science, a fully accredited university offering distant learning graduate degrees that focus on mind, body, and spirit. The topics that we cover here. We are particularly excited to announce new degrees emphasizing parapsychology and the paranormal. Visit their website at cihs.edu. You can now download all 8 copies of the New Thinking Aloud magazine for free, or order beautiful printed copies. Go to newthinkingaloud.org.